There is a fix I use every single summer that costs me about $4, takes an afternoon to put up, and turns a house that gets dangerously, miserably hot into one that stays cool and livable right through the worst of the heat. $4. And I want to be straight with you right from the start about the other number in that title, because I'll not lie to you to keep you watching. Is this going to save you $3,000 this summer? For the overwhelming majority of folks, no, it is not. And anybody who tells you otherwise is selling something. Most households don't spend anything close to $3,000 cooling a home in a summer. What this will do is cut a real and noticeable amount off your cooling bill month after month for a one-time cost of about $4, and for some folks in big hot houses with the machine running day and night, that adds up to real money over a season. And more than the money, it may keep your family safe, because a house that gets truly hot is not just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. And that part of the title is no exaggeration at all. So before I show you the fix, I need to give you the safety warning, because heat kills people every summer, and I'll not have that on my conscience. So let me get right into it. Let me give you the warning first, because it matters more than the fix and more than the money. Real heat kills. That's not a dramatic way of putting it, that's just the plain fact of it. And it happens every single summer, quietly, to more people than most folks realize. And the ones it takes are almost always the same: the elderly, the very young, babies especially, anyone who's sick or frail, expectant mothers, and folks on certain medicines that stop the body from handling heat properly. Many of them die in their own homes, alone, in houses that got hot slowly over a few days while nobody checked on them. So hear me plainly. The fix I'm about to give you is a wonderful, cheap, effective way to keep an ordinary home far cooler through an ordinary hot summer. And I use it myself, and I stand behind it. But it is not a replacement for real cooling in a true, dangerous heat wave. And if the heat gets extreme and won't let up, day or night, and you have anyone vulnerable in your home, you take them somewhere cool. A library, a store, a cooling center, a relation's house with air conditioning. There is no shame in that, and there is nothing self-reliant about a person getting hurt by heat that could have been avoided. And know the signs, because heat sickness creeps up, and the person it's happening to often can't tell. Heavy sweating, headache, dizziness, weakness, feeling sick to the stomach, muscle cramps. That's heat exhaustion, and that's your warning. Get them cool and get water into them straight away. But if the sweating stops and the skin goes hot and dry, if they get confused or slur their words or stop making sense or faint, that is heat stroke, and that is a dire emergency, and you call for emergency help immediately, because a person can die from that fast. Cool them however you can while help is on the way. And drink water all day long before you're thirsty, because thirst means you're already behind. And go check on your elderly neighbors in a heat wave every day, because that old neighborly habit saves lives every summer. And the folks most at risk are exactly the ones least likely to pick up the phone and ask anybody for help. All right, with that said properly, let me show you the $4 fix. Let me tell you how I came to it, because I didn't read this anywhere. I got taught it standing in somebody's yard. Years back, I had an upstairs room in my house that was simply unusable from about June to September. Come the afternoon, you couldn't sit in there, couldn't sleep in there. It was like opening an oven door. And I did all the usual things. I put a fan in it, which just moved hot air around and made noise. I kept the curtains drawn, which helped a little but not near enough. I even looked at what it would cost to put a machine in that one room, and it was a good deal of money for one room I mostly wanted for sleeping. And an old Amish fellow I knew, who'd been out helping me with something else entirely, stood in the yard looking up at that window with the afternoon sun full on it, and he said, "Well, there's your trouble, plain as day." And I said, "What, the window?" And he said, "No, the sun on the window, and there's a difference." And he told me that as long as I was fighting that heat from the inside, I was fighting it after it had already won, and that the whole job was to stop the sun outside the glass, out there, before it ever came in. And he told me to go find a white sheet and hang it on the outside and see for myself. And I did it that same day, half thinking it was too simple to matter, and by the next afternoon that room was a different room. Not perfect, not cold, but usable, comfortable, a place a person could sit and sleep, from a bed sheet and then hours' work. And I've done it every summer since, on the worst windows, and I've never once spent money on cooling that room again. That's the whole story, and I tell it because if a man had described this fix to me in a video, I'd probably have shrugged it off too, and I'd have been wrong. Here it is, and it's so simple you'll wonder why nobody told you. A plain white sheet, or a length of cheap light-colored cloth, hung on the outside of the windows that the sun beats on. That's it. That's the whole thing. About $4 at any thrift store, or free if you've an old white sheet in the closet already, which most folks do. Now I know exactly how that sounds. You were expecting some clever contraption, and I've handed you a bed sheet. So let me explain why this one humble thing does more to cool a house than almost anything else you could do, because once you understand the reason, you'll never look at your windows the same way again. Here is what most folks have never understood about why their house gets hot. It is not mainly the hot air outside creeping in. Your walls and your roof are slow about letting heat through. They take hours and hours. The thing that cooks your house fast and hard is the sunlight itself, pouring straight in through the glass of your windows, landing on your floors and your furniture and your walls, and turning into heat right there inside the room where it's trapped and can't get back out. A window with the summer sun blazing through it is not a window at all. It's a furnace, pouring heat into your home hour after hour, all day long. And that's why shading that glass is the single biggest thing any person can do to cool a house, bigger than everything else combined. If you stop the sun before it gets through the glass, you stop the heat before it's ever made. You're not fighting heat that's already in your house. You're preventing it from ever existing in the first place. And that is a far, far easier fight. Now here's the part that matters most, and the part almost everybody gets wrong. The sheet goes on the outside of the window, not inside, outside. Because think about what happens with an inside curtain. The sun comes through the glass into your room and hits the curtain. The curtain stops the light, yes, but the light has already come through the glass and it's already inside your house, and now that curtain is soaking up all that energy and heating up, and it's radiating that heat right into your room. You've caught the heat, but you caught it after it was already in the house, so most of it stays. An inside curtain helps, and it's far better than nothing, but it's fighting a battle that was already half lost. But when you hang that sheet on the outside of the glass, the sunlight never gets in at all. It hits the white cloth out there in the open air, and the white bounces most of it straight back to the sky, and whatever heat the cloth does soak up just drifts away on the outside air where it can't touch you. The heat is stopped out there, outside the house, and never becomes your problem. That one difference, outside instead of inside, is worth several times over what the same cloth does hung indoors, and it costs you nothing extra to do it right. That's the whole secret, and the old folks knew it, which is exactly why old houses have awnings and shutters and deep porch roofs, all of them out there on the sunny side, stopping the sun before it ever reaches the glass. And white matters too. White and light colors bounce the sun's energy back. Dark colors drink it in and get hot. So a white or pale sheet does the job far better than a dark one. If your cloth is dark on one side and light on the other, put the light side facing out toward the sun. So let me tell you exactly how to do it, plain and practical. First, work out which windows actually need it, because you don't need to do them all, and there's no sense in the work. Go outside your house and watch it through a hot day, or just think about where the sun tracks. The windows that get the strong afternoon sun are the ones that hurt you most, because afternoon sun is the hottest sun, and it's landing on a house that's already warmed up all morning. In most homes, that's the west-facing side. Morning sun windows matter too, but less. And any window with no direct sun on it, one that's shaded by a tree or another building or faces away, you can leave be entirely, because there's no sun to stop. So look, find your 2 or 3 worst windows and start there. You'll get most of the benefit from a handful of windows, and that's why this cost $4 instead of $100. Second, hang it. Now this doesn't need to be a piece of fine carpentry, it just needs to hang there and stay put. Tack or staple the top edge to the trim above the window, outside. Tie it to a rail or a hook or a nail. Hang it from a curtain rod bracketed outside, or run a wire or a bit of clothesline across and peg the sheet to it. Some folks use clamps, whatever holds. Leave a hand's width of air gap between the cloth and the glass if you can, because that little gap of moving air carries away heat that would otherwise soak through, and it makes the whole thing work noticeably better. And weight the bottom, or tie it down. A corner of a brick in a hem ties at the bottom corners, so a good wind doesn't turn your fix into a sail and take it off across the field. Third, and this is worth saying, cover the whole glass, top to bottom. Half a window shaded is half a window still cooking you. Go a little bigger than the opening if you can, so the cloth overhangs the frame a bit and no strip of sun sneaks in at the edges as the sun moves across the sky. And that's it. That's the fix. A white sheet hung outside on your sunniest windows, weighted at the bottom with a bit of air gap. $4 one afternoon, and every day for the rest of the summer, that house of yours stops being cooked by its own windows. And let me give you 2 small variations on the same idea in case a sheet doesn't suit your situation. If you've a window where a hanging sheet is awkward, the same principle works with anything that shades that glass from outside. A bit of lattice leaned up, a shade cloth, a cheap outdoor blind, a board, a trellis with a vine growing up it, even a leafy potted plant set right up against the sunny side. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that it's outside the glass and it's between the sun and your window. And if you want the very best version of this and you're willing to spend a bit more than $4, look at what they call a reflective or radiant barrier, the silvery sheeting put up on the outside. It bounces back even more than white cloth does. But I'll be honest, the plain white sheet gets you most of the way there for almost nothing, and most folks never bother going further because they don't need to. And here's a small extra worth knowing, since we're talking about where heat comes from. After the windows, the next biggest way heat gets into a house is down through the roof, because that roof sits in full sun all day and gets ferociously hot, and that heat soaks down through the attic into your upstairs rooms. Now that's not a $4 fix, so I'll not pretend otherwise. But if your attic is poorly insulated and has no way for the hot air up there to vent out, that's the next thing worth attention after you've done your windows, and it explains why upstairs rooms are always the worst in a house. Do the windows first. They're cheap and quick and give you the most for the least. Then think about the roof over your head when you've the time and money for it. Now let me be honest with you about the money, because I opened by telling you I'd not lie to you, and I meant it. The $4 is real. That part's true, and then some, because if you've got an old sheet already, you'll pay nothing at all. But the savings depend entirely on your own situation, and it varies enormously from one house to the next, so I'll not stand here and hand you a number and pretend it's yours. What I can tell you honestly is this. If you run air conditioning, that machine is working hardest precisely because sunlight is pouring in your windows and heating your rooms faster than it can cool them. Take that sunlight away, and the machine simply doesn't have to work as hard or run as long, and it uses less electricity every single hour of every hot day all summer. That's a real ongoing saving, and it's not small over a whole season, and it repays $4 about 1,000 times over. For a big house with lots of glass on the sunny side and the machine running day and night, it can add up to serious money over a summer. For a small shaded apartment, it'll be modest. Both are worth $4. And if you don't run air conditioning at all, then the saving isn't money, it's comfort and safety. And honestly, I think that's the better prize. A house that stays livable instead of turning into an oven is worth a great deal more than what it saved you. So no, I'm not going to promise you $3,000. I'm going to promise you that $4 spent this way will do more for the heat in your house than $4 spent any other way on this earth. And that's a promise I can actually keep. Now the sheet is the fix, but let me give you the 3 free habits that go with it, because together they're what turns a hot house into a genuinely cool one, and every one of these costs nothing at all. The first is the rhythm of opening and closing, and most folks do it exactly backwards. Here it is. However hot the day is, the night is nearly always cooler. So at night, once the air outside has dropped below the temperature inside your house, you open everything, wide, on both sides of the house, so the air can run right through, and you let that free, cool night air flush all the day's heat out and fill your home with coolness. And then in the morning, before the day heats up, you close it all, windows and curtains, and shut that coolness inside where the hot day can't get at it. Open at night, closed by day. That's the dance, and it costs you nothing but remembering to do it. And if you've a low window on the cool side and a high one upstairs on the other, open both, because hot air rises and will pour out the high one while cool air is drawn in the low one, all on its own, with no fan at all. The second free habit is to stop making heat inside your own house. An oven or a hot stove will heat your whole home something fierce, and folks run them in the middle of the hottest part of the day without a thought. So do your baking and your cooking early in the morning or late in the evening, or outside altogether, and eat simpler, cooler food when it's blazing. Every bit of heat you don't make is heat you don't have to get rid of. And the third is to cool your body rather than the whole house, which is the wisdom underneath all of this. You don't need a cold house. You need a cool body. And you can have one in a warm room easy enough. Loose clothes in natural cloth, cotton and linen, that let your skin breathe and your sweat do its work. A cool, damp cloth on the back of your neck and your wrists, where the blood runs close to the skin, cools your whole body remarkably fast. A basin of cool water to put your feet in of an evening. Cool water to drink all day. And rest through the worst of the afternoon, and do your work in the cool hours, the way folks in hot countries have always known to do. Now let me give you the honest limits, because I promised you straight talk. This fix works everywhere, but it works best where the sun is your main problem, which is most places. If you live somewhere with heavy humidity and hot, sticky nights that never cool down, the sheet will still help you a great deal by stopping the sun, but the night flushing part won't do much for you, because there's no cool air out there to let in. Judge it by feel. If the night air is cooler than your house, let it in. If it isn't, keep it shut. If you rent, or you've got one of those associations with rules about how the outside of your home may look, check before you go hanging sheets across the front of the building, because I'd hate to save you $4 and cost you a fine. In that case, do it on the back and the side windows where nobody minds, or use an inside light-colored curtain kept closed all day, which isn't as good, but is a great deal better than nothing. And I'll say the most important limit again plainly, because it's the one that matters. This will make an ordinary hothouse cool and comfortable. It will not make a house safe in a true extreme heat emergency. And it is not a substitute for real cooling if you have someone elderly, very young, pregnant, or unwell in your home when the heat turns dangerous. When that happens, the answer is to get to a cool place, and the sheet is beside the point. So let me bring it home. The reason your house gets deadly hot isn't the air outside. It's the sunlight pouring through your glass and turning to trapped heat inside your rooms. Hang a plain white sheet on the outside of your 2 or 3 sunniest windows. Cover the whole pane, leave a little air gap, weight the bottom against the wind. That's $4 and one afternoon. Then open the house wide at night and close it tight by morning. Don't run your oven in the heat of the day, and cool your body with a damp cloth instead of trying to chill every room. And watch out for the vulnerable. Know the signs of heat sickness, and go somewhere cool when the heat turns dangerous. Do that, and your house will stay far cooler than your neighbor's for $4 against his $400, using exactly the same understanding our great-grandparents had when they planted shade trees on the sunny side and built those deep porches and hung those shutters, none of which was decoration, all of which was somebody who understood the sun. Because in the end, they never had a machine to fix a hothouse. They had to actually understand why a house gets hot and then simply stop it happening. And that understanding is still worth more than any machine. It still works, and it still costs about $4. If this is the kind of practical, honest, money-saving old wisdom you've been hungry for, the kind that makes you capable and self-reliant and connects you back to the good sense of those who came before, then stay here with me. There's so much more where this came from, and I aim to bring it back to you, one piece at a time, always with care for your true safety. Subscribe, and we'll keep remembering the old ways together, because some of the most valuable things we ever knew are the simple ones we let ourselves forget, and a white sheet on a sunny window is surely one of them.